Okay, 3, 2, 1, here we go. Whoa. Oh my God. So this, finally, is the Tesla Model S Plaid. It's a car we were first told about back in 2020, but this is our first chance to get behind the wheel here in the UK. So, what is it? Why is the steering wheel on the wrong side? Can you use a PS5 controller with it? And will this thing really do 0 to 60 miles an hour in less than 2 seconds? We're running through all that and much more in this review. But before we get started, if you want to see lots more reviews like this, make sure you subscribe to our channel and go to whatcar.com for a great deal on your next car. So the Model S launched in Europe in 2013, which makes this quite an old car now, doesn't it? But this new model that you see here definitely isn't the same car that you could buy 10 years ago. Over the years, we've seen a number of changes to the software, the hardware, that's given us different styling, better performance, longer ranges, different batteries. This is the latest and possibly the last update to the Model S. So what is new with this new version? Well, the first thing to point out is that the Model S has been on a bit of a hiatus here in the UK. The last time you could buy this car new, you could have it as a long-range version or a performance version. But when these updates were announced for the car, the old version went off sale, and then Tesla started taking reservations and deposits for this new model. The problem was deliveries of the new Model S were delayed and delayed and delayed, and really it felt like Tesla was just focused on shifting as many Model 3s and Model Ys as possible because they sell in far greater numbers than the Model S. But now the Model S is back, about 18 months since you could last buy the old one. There is one catch though. Yes, wherever you are in the world, if you order a Model S or a Model X, you will get a left-hand drive version of this car. Because earlier this year, in typical Tesla out of the blue fashion, it was announced that they would not be making any right-hand drive versions of the Model S or the Model X, and there wasn't really much explanation as to why. Presumably, it just wasn't worth the effort or the cost to Tesla. So, would this put you off buying a Model S? Or are you actually someone who's cancelled your reservation because of this? Tell us in the comments below. We've also been told that you can't actually spec up and buy a brand new Model S here in the UK. Instead, you've got to go on Tesla's website and look at the available cars that they have in their inventory and make a choice through something that's already available. And apparently, it's likely to stay that way for some time. Now, styling-wise, you might notice a bit of a difference between the new Model S and the old one at the front and at the rear. So there's new headlights, there's also new tail lights, and whereas in the old car you had these flashes of chrome on the outside, that's been swapped for this black trim that you see here instead. There are now 2 versions of the Model S you can buy. You can have the Model S Long Range or the Model S Plaid, and whichever one you go for, they look pretty much the same inside and out. The new Model S now comes with an updated battery pack, so the range is even longer and even more impressive than ever. So, Tesla doesn't say officially how big the actual battery is, but it's thought the usable capacity is 95 kilowatt hours. And that means the long-range version of this car has a claimed range of 394 miles. This Plaid has a claimed range of 373 miles. They both get exactly the same battery, and they both have a heat pump as standard, which the old Model S didn't get. And that means if you're heating the interior of this car in cold conditions, it can do so in a more efficient way than the old Model S without a heat pump. It also helps keep the powertrain cool as well. The battery's ability to charge has also been improved over the old Model S. So now this can accept its peak charging rate for a longer amount of time than it could before. Now, Tesla won't give us full charging stats for the Model S, but we've been told to expect it can replenish 180 miles worth of charge in just 15 minutes. And don't forget, buying a Tesla gives you access to Tesla's fantastic supercharger network. There's loads of them around, they're really quick, and they're very reliable. And that is not something you can say of the rest of the UK's charging infrastructure, unfortunately. So if you buy an electric car that isn't a Tesla, that is what you're stuck with. Although, at the minute, Tesla is currently piloting a scheme where non-Tesla electric cars can use superchargers at some locations. Now, it's not immediately clear how long that pilot scheme is going to continue, or if in the future all non-Tesla electric cars will be able to use it. So for now, this remains a huge advantage of going for a Tesla. Mechanically, it's not just the battery that's been updated for this new Model S, but the electric motors have also been upgraded. So, both cars are four-wheel drive. The long range has 2 electric motors. This Plaid has 3 electric motors, 2 at the rear and 1 at the front. And remember, even before these updates, the Model S was an insanely quick electric car. But now, the long range has a quoted 0 to 60 miles an hour time of 3.1 seconds. And this Plaid can apparently do 0 to 60 miles an hour in 1.99 seconds. But can it really? Keep watching to find out. Now, the new Model S has an interior which is very different from the old one. Here is what it looked like before, and this is what it looks like now. So you can see the main area of difference is around the center console and dashboard here, where you can see this bit all looks a bit neater. You've got your wireless phone charging up here, these storage areas, which are all very practical and handy with massive storage compartments, and there's another one under this big central armrest as well. But really, the more important difference is this infotainment system here. Now, the first quirky Tesla thing to point out is the fact that you can have this touchscreen infotainment system in the center here, or you can angle it towards the driver, or you can angle it towards your front passenger. Now, this mostly feels a bit gimmicky, but it does serve some practical purpose, because if you're driving and you want your passenger to alter something on the infotainment system, then it's slightly better having it angled towards them, making it easier to see, easier to reach. And likewise, if you're driving and you want to adjust something on the infotainment system, then obviously it's slightly better having it angled towards you, so it's easier to see and easier to reach. Now, the infotainment system itself is really what we've come to expect from Tesla. So, it's on this massive screen, the graphics are crystal clear, it's incredibly quick in its response time, it's very smooth, hopping between the menus, it doesn't feel glitchy at all, and you don't actually get Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but this is so good, really, that you don't actually miss that. And that is not something you can say about any other infotainment system around. However, this isn't perfect, because everything pretty much is controlled through this touchscreen infotainment system. So that means if you want to adjust the position of the steering wheel, that's done through here, and these scrollers here. If you want to adjust the door mirrors, again, you've got to use this infotainment system. Even selecting a gear is done through the infotainment system. And it would be better if there were more physical controls to use some of these functions, because there's so much jammed into this that a lot of the icons can be a bit small, the text can be a bit difficult to read, and it can be quite challenging to hit things accurately while you're driving. So this infotainment system is definitely at its best when you're parked up waiting for a charge, because then you can watch YouTube, you can watch Netflix, you can even play games on it, and not just any kind of shonky phone games, but actual video games, because Tesla reckons this is pretty much as powerful as a modern games console. You can even connect your PS5 controller to this system and play actual video games through it. So you might actually wish that this car didn't charge as quickly as it can. Now, you do also get a new steering wheel with the Model S. So like before, you've got these dials either side here, but what's new is the fact that you've got this touch-sensitive haptic setup around the dials. Now, that immediately sets alarm bells ringing, because we've seen in other cars that have a haptic touch-sensitive setup on the steering wheel, they are absolutely rubbish. But the good news is that by those standards, this Model S is definitely on the better end of the scale, because it is pretty clear when you've pressed a button and when you haven't pressed a button. And it's reasonably easy to be accurate in hitting these buttons on the steering wheel. You might also notice that there are no stalks on the steering column, so that means if you want to indicate, you've got to do it by pressing these buttons on the wheel here, which is very strange initially and does take quite a lot of getting used to. Now, all of this works reasonably well, but it still would be better if these were proper physical buttons. And by the way, in the UK, if you want a yoke steering wheel, which you might have heard about or seen pictures of before, then it's a £200 optional extra to swap this standard wheel for a yoke one. Now, we haven't driven a Tesla with a yoke steering wheel, but we have driven a Lexus with one. And if you want to see our review of that car and see exactly what it's like, then click on the link at the top of the screen. But what is the quality like in here? Because early Teslas and particularly early Model S's got quite a lot of flack for having pretty poor, inconsistent build quality, certainly compared to the big European rivals that it was up against. So you can sense in this new Model S there has been a definite upgrade for the car in terms of lots of the materials used, and the fit and finish seems pretty good in here. So this is definitely the best Model S that we've sat in terms of interior quality. But if you think now this is an incredibly expensive electric car, and there are quite a few other rivals around at this price range, compared to a lot of them, this interior isn't really a knockout in terms of the build quality and certainly the materials used, because this chrome effect finish doesn't look particularly plush, does it? And this carbon fibre effect as well. It's okay, but it doesn't feel necessarily like a car that costs more than £110,000. If you look at the BMW i7, the Porsche Taycan, they have interiors which do feel like a decent step up in terms of quality than what you find in the Model S. One final new thing to point out up front, the addition of door bins, which is great, and it was always very strange that they didn't have them in the old Model S. Now, there hasn't been any big changes in the dimensions of the Model S, so that means in the rear seats, it's just as spacious as it was before, but there are still some differences. So the main thing to point out is this rear screen that you get. You get that as standard, so whichever version of the Model S you get, this is what you find in the back of the car, and you can control the climate from back here, you can watch Netflix or YouTube, you can adjust the volume of the media that you're listening to as well, and apparently the front seats themselves have been moved forwards a little bit compared to the old Model S to increase the space that you have back here, but really that didn't need to happen, because in the old car you had loads of room, and you've still got loads of room back here. So you can see legroom is very generous. If you've got the front seat as low as it will go, there isn't really much room for your feet underneath it, but aside from that, no real grumbles. Nice having this flat floor in the back as well. Headroom is pretty good. If you're over 6 foot, you might feel a little bit cramped when you're sitting up straight, but otherwise, because this panoramic sunroof as well, it feels very open and spacious back here. Something else new is the ability to pull down this middle seat to reveal some wireless phone charging. So that means there's 4 wireless phone charging pads in the new Model S, and you get that as standard as well. There's also 2 cup holders up here. You've got another kind of secret compartment under this thing, but you don't have a ski hatch, so there's no access to the boot from the rear seats. You still get a huge boot, which is the same size as before. There's loads of underfloor storage, there's a front boot as well, which is big enough for the charging cables, and in total we could fit 11 carry-on size suitcases using both boots. And that still leaves all that underfloor storage. So this is, like before, an incredibly practical electric car which comfortably beats the boots in rivals like the Mercedes EQS, BMW i7 and Porsche Taycan. The practicality side of things is the same for the new car as it was for the old car, but something different to point out is the price. Now, when the Model S first went on sale in the UK around 10 years ago, the starting price was about £50,000. Today, a Model S long range costs £90,000, and this Plaid is more than £110,000. But is this actually good value? Which sounds ridiculous, of course, but for your money, you're getting something that is incredibly practical. You're getting an almost 400-mile electric range, and you're getting 1,000 brake horsepower. So this is quicker than many other cars which are significantly more expensive than this, whether they're powered by fuel or electricity. And for the electric cars that get close to the Model S in terms of range from a full charge, some are even better than this, on paper at least. They cost more money, and they are nowhere near as quick. Okay, so how quick is this thing? We have drag strip mode engaged. Once you press it on the infotainment screen, it warms the battery up, trying to get it to optimum temperature to allow peak performance. We've got a very straight bit of road that's closed off. It is a very simple process really. Left foot on the brake, right foot hard down, and the driver display is saying, preparing for launch, suspension entering cheetah stance. So I can feel the front of the car lowering down, and now it says ready to launch. So, okay, 3, 2, 1, here we go. Whoa. Oh my God, that is ridiculous, and there's 100 miles an hour already. Woo! That is stupidly quick. Wow. Okay, 0 to 60 miles an hour in 2.4 seconds. 0 to 100 in 4.8 seconds. This is ridiculous. So not 1.99, not less than 2 seconds, but when Tesla takes its sprint time, it uses rollout, which basically doesn't measure the first foot of movement. And also, unfortunately, the battery's not at 100%. Maybe that would have a difference as well. Wow, so not the claim time, but absolutely insane acceleration nonetheless, and very interesting compared to figures we have from the previous fastest version of the Model S, the Model S Performance. It's not a perfect comparison because that car was tested in damp conditions. For us, this time around, it was bone dry. But still, the old Model S did 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds for us, and 0 to 100 in 7.2 seconds. So the new Model S Plaid is even quicker from 0 to 60 and significantly more powerful in its acceleration at high speeds, getting from 0 to 100 almost 2.5 seconds before the old car could. That really is a scary step forwards in performance. There is also, by the way, a track package you can add to the Model S Plaid, which essentially gives you upgraded carbon ceramic brakes, different tyres, and it unlocks the car's top speed of 200 miles an hour. It's not cheap though. It's yet to be confirmed exactly what the UK cost is going to be, but judging by the price in the US, it might be around £16,000. So this thing clearly is absolutely rapid, but what's almost just as impressive is how easy this is to drive slowly. And when you do, things are very smooth and calm. You would never guess that you've got 1,000 brake horsepower under your foot. Now, in terms of other mechanical updates, there isn't really much to go through. So that means that the Model S package on the road is what we're used to with this car, really. So it's still the case that this isn't a enthusiast car. In terms of body control, handling ability, steering feel, a Porsche Taycan is still in another league to this car. This is relatively agile, but the Porsche is the benchmark for electric cars when it comes to handling. What the Model S does do very nicely though is the big luxury EV limo thing. So the air suspension that you get as standard keeps things comfortable. It has quite a nice waft to the ride, although we've got big 21-inch alloys fitted to this test car, and it is just thumping and giving a harsh edge over these broken roads that we're going over. It is fairly quiet in here, but one problem for the Model S is the fact that since this has gone on sale, we've now got the BMW i7, which is a proper big luxury limo EV as well. And that is more comfortable, it's quieter, but of course nowhere near as quick in a straight line. So really, it is the straight line performance of the Model S that sets it aside from all of its rivals. But if that isn't your main priority, then there are now other cars which offer a more polished overall package than this. So, new Model S, but same story really. It might not be the ultimate driver's car, but it is unbelievably quick. Even quicker than the ludicrously quick previous version. It has a great range, autopilot is still the benchmark for driving assistance features, it has one of the best electric car infotainment systems around, it's incredibly practical, and the interior, generally, is better than ever. But it is also more expensive than ever. And the elephant in the room is the fact that you'll only get a left-hand drive car over here. The good news is, if you want a fantastic electric car with a huge range, brilliant performance, great practicality, and a Tesla badge, the Model 3 and Model Y are about half the price of this. Now, what do you think of the Model S? Tell us in the comments below. And if you want to see more videos from us, then here are 2. There's also a link to some great deals if you want to pick up a saving on your next car. And don't forget, subscribe to our channel so you can see all of our new video reviews as soon as they go live.